Hi, welcome to my journey out roach fishing. What we're trying to do today is we're trying to catch some cold water, and it is cold. It's absolutely freezing, so we're winter fishing in cold water, and what we're trying to do is catch some nice roach. Trying to catch them on a float. We're not going to use the ledger today or the feeder or any sort of static approach. We're just going to fish the float, keep feeding a little bit of ground bait we've made up, and loose feeding sweet corn, worm and maggot over the top, and really just trying to see which bait picks out the better fish, and if we can actually get one over that sort of magic pound mark in this weather. So come and join me now. We'll get the float out and we'll see what's about. Okay, before we start fishing, we're just going to go through what bait I'm going to use today. I'm going to run through a simple ground bait. It's just a couple of ingredients to put together. I don't want something that's going to feed the fish a lot. I want to try and get, at this time of year, I mean, it's absolutely freezing. Last night, this place was covered in frost, and we just want something that's going to ball into little balls, be able to make it into nice firm balls, but break up in the water and just pump out that flavour to try and attract the roach in, which is the species we're after today. So I'm using 2 ground baits, and I'm staying away from the fish meal really because it's so cold. So I'm using the black roach. I don't need masses. It's probably going to be fairly slow on the fishing, and I'm using the crushed tempt. Absolute fabulous roach. Roach bait extreme, used it all last winter, really did have some fantastic results with it. Puts a lot of flavour, a lot of oils into the water, a lot of attraction. What it does for us, it doesn't feed them too much. If we were on a heavy, I'm absolute crazy fan, if you've seen anything I've done before, of our hemp and alley crush, but when it gets down to this cold, then I do try and go for those lighter sort of baits. Right, so it's quite a mealy mix. Little thing I add myself, just a sprinkle of liver powder. Holland and Barrett, they sell it in there, any of the health stores. Little tub of it, you don't need much. A little bit goes a long way. Lasts you all winter, but it just attracts fish in cold water, anything. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to be using a bit of corn today. So I'm going to use the corn juice to mix my ground bait. Now, if I can get it all out of the juice of the corn and the hemp, I'll be really quite happy. Like I say, I'm not using a great deal of ground bait today. I don't want to overfeed the fish. So I could be able to get it all out of this, but it's those liquid attractants that I'm constantly putting in there, and they're just going to ooze out the ground bait as the day goes on. Keep putting in a little ball every now and again. Okay, that's starting to come together real nice. But I actually need a bit more mix. We'll give it a minute, let it soak that up. I'm not going to put any actual sweet corn in it. I'm going to leave the sweet corn out of it because I want to be able to control how much sweet corn I have in the swim, so I'll be able to feed that loose feed with the catapult. The only thing I'm going to add is a bit of chopped worm, just a little bit of chopped worm, because I'm going to be fishing with a bit of worm later on. We'll have a look at that, and we'll have a look at how I use a couple of the little flavours and dips to just sort of enhance that worm. But the thing I found with fishing with worm in winter for roach is I pick out the bigger fish. Now, some people will say, why aren't you using bread? I'm a traditionalist. I love fishing with bread, but in this water we've got a lot of smaller roach, and if we get those in and we're fishing with bread, we're fishing in very deep water with a sliding float, it's just going to be really, really hard for us to control the bait on the hook. So we're going to spend quite a bit of time fishing without any bait on the hook. So the worm in the ground bait, just a bit of chopped worm, not a great deal, just a little bit. It's easier for me to get it out there than in a catapult. They're really hard to wade the distance with, and that's coming lovely now. So I can just make those. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself about a dozen of these little balls. You see that little bit of worm in there. Scopexy, sweet, hempy. It really does smell nice. And that's just going to pump flavour around where I'm going to be float fishing over. And then I'm going to loose feed on top of that. So I'm going to make myself a few of these little balls. I'm going to put them in the side of my pouch there ready. We'll introduce a couple into the swim. And then we'll get fishing and see how we get on. Do with a few of them now, that'd be good. Really clean, look at that, lovely fish. So straight away, our intended species, but not the sort of size of fish we're after. So I've had a couple of bites straight away on a maggot. Fishing the sliding float. We're probably in 16 feet of water, so we're fairly deep. It's down in a deep trough on the lake. Silty lake, fishing over a silty bottom. It's a natural water created in the last ice age. It's got a good population of roach. Can take a bit of finding in the cold weather, but once you find them, you can catch quite a few. But it's the bigger ones we're trying to sort out today. Just have another look with the maggot. Feed a little more over the top, see what's going on, see it, try and gauge how many fish we have got in the swim and how active they are. We introduced some of the ground bait we made before, and we're steadily, yep, we're getting steady bites. Yeah, but again, we're on that very small theme with the roach. So I think what I'll do, I've got a choice of baits. Like I said, I've even got worm today. So I've caught quite a lot of roach on a big, on quite a medium-sized worm, medium to big-sized worm, and a lot of the bigger roach I've caught. That bigger bait singled them out. Like I say, it's a very natural water, so you're fishing for natural fish, and I think that those sort of baits are very good. But to start with, I've been feeding a little corn, so I'm going to pop this out and then feed a bit of corn over the top. Because especially when it's really cold, like it is today, and it is cold, you know, we're not just saying it for effect. It is a very cold day, even for winter standards. Oh, bite straight away. Let's hope it's a better fish. No, it's straight back up, so let's give him the sort of indication that the smaller ones are wanting to take the corn, but with a slightly big hook and a decent sized piece of corn as the hook bait. They're not quite as able as the maggot to engulf it. Hopefully giving the bait more time to find a bigger roach. So the waiting it out with sweet corn is starting to work, isn't it? big roach. I mean, nice standard size though. Lovely bait. As I say, I do like that sweetness of the F1 corn, especially when the water's really cold. Another thing we'll have a look at later, and like I say, this lake's a natural lake. It's stream fed, connected to the river, and when we get a lot of rain, it can colour up quite badly, much like the river. You know, the sweetness of the flavoured corn, or indeed when I use some of the haze liquid sometimes and just do the maggots or whatever bait I'm using with that, just a little more taste, a little more colour than normal, does seem to produce quite a few bites when the water's coloured and cold. I do like a little bit more flavour, a little bit more sweetness. Okay, so as I was saying, when it's a bit more coloured or very cold, a slightly larger bait like that, 3 maggots, which has caught us a few better fish today as well. You know, it certainly has its merit. It's got a few smaller ones, and then using the haze. Now I've tried the bloodworm, I've tried the squid and krill, and to be honest, I think they're all pretty good and all seem to do the same thing, but it's just that like I say, I'm using a sweet one today, the chocolate orange. I think that sweet, extra bit of flavour and colour just pulls the roach onto the hook bait that bit faster, especially when you've got a bit of colour in the water and it's very cold and things are slow. Give it a try. It certainly worked for me on more than one occasion. I'll get this out and see if we can catch a fish. Yeah, still loads of small fish action on the corn. I can tell by the floats just bobbing and dipping. Not really giving me a positive bite there. So I think what we'll try is, we know they're on the maggot, so I'm going to try a slightly bigger bunch of maggots. I've given myself a bit of leeway today. I mean, I'm fishing with a size 12 specialist hook, which for most people is a brutally large hook for float fishing for roach, but knowing these fish in this pool, I can still catch a small one on a hook that size. But the problem is if I'm fishing with a small hook, and if I try to change over to a bigger bait at all, then if I can get it on the hook, then I'm unlikely to hook many fish. So I prefer to go the other way, fish a slightly bigger hook. I can then chop and change on the bigger baits, trying to sort out the bigger roach without fear of masking the point. Simple as that. Especially when you start fishing worm. I don't bother with bread in here, because when the small roach get on you like now, even, you know, what have we got on, 4 maggots now, and it's being played with. If I'm fishing with bread, because we're fishing in such deep water on a sliding float, by the time I'm getting any sort of indication, I've got no bait left. So it really makes sense to fish a bait that you know is going to withstand a little bit of stick and offer you that chance of trying to sort out a better fish from the shoal. Okay, so we've gone punch of 4 maggots. Lovely in the winter sun there. It's got us a bit of a better roach. Still, we're greedy though, and we want more. Okay, so we're still catching. Unfortunately, the light's faded now. Moderate little roach on the sweet corn, F1 corn, absolutely fantastic this afternoon. Unfortunately, we really did lose a big fish earlier on, but that's the way it goes. So I'll pop this in the net, I'll get it out, put it on the mat, and let's have a look at what we caught. Okay, so there's the bag of roach we've caught today. Not quite what we're after. We've struggled a bit for the bigger fish, and certainly we've struggled a bit for numbers. It's been quite a hard day, but like I said this morning, it's really, really cold today. And I think it's just put them down a bit, you know. Perhaps if it was colder for a longer period of time, it might stabilise out. But, you know, we'll have a go again another time. But it's been a great day's sport. Great fun trying to sort out how to catch those bigger roach, what they're taking, what they're feeding on. F1 corn was probably the bait of the day. As always, great bait. And it's picked us out a few fish of this sort of size. Unfortunately, we've had one slip off the hook just before we netted it that was quite considerably bigger, but that's the way it is with fishing. Still great to be out. Thanks for watching.